When you've been married as long as I have, you start to recognize the sounds of your own house the way you recognize your own heartbeat. The old steps near the front door creak twice. The fridge hums a certain way. The bathroom fan rattles on the second setting. That night, when I walked in with a paper bag of takeout in my hand and my school bag on my shoulder, something felt off the second I closed the door behind me. The house was too quiet at first. No TV in the living room. No gospel station playing in the kitchen. Just my own shoes on the hardwood. "Addison?" I called out, setting the food on the counter. "I grabbed that lemon pepper you like." No answer. I checked the time on my phone. A little after 7. She should have been home almost an hour by then. Her car was in the driveway. Her purse sat on the small table by the door, keys right beside it. So she was definitely in the house. I walked down the hallway toward our bedroom, already planning to joke about her falling asleep early again. Halfway there, I heard it. A sound I wasn't supposed to hear. Low at first. A soft, drawn-out moan. I stopped walking. My hand tightened around my school bag strap. I told myself I didn't hear what I knew I heard. Maybe she was watching something on her phone. Maybe she was stretching, working out, something. Anything. Then I heard it again. Clearer. Higher. A sound I had heard from her before, but not like this. Not through a closed door. Our bedroom door was shut. The small, brass lock I never bothered with was turned. I could see the shadow of it from where I stood. I knocked once, gently. "Addison?" My voice came out calm, but my chest felt tight. There was a scramble on the other side. Sheets moving. Feet hitting the floor. The sudden, sharp silence of someone who realizes they are not alone. "Hold on," she called. Her voice sounded wrong. Breathless. Pressed. "Leon, just give me a minute." My hand rested on the doorknob even though it was useless. "You okay?" I asked. "You sound off." "Open the door." A few seconds passed. Too many. "I'm having a panic attack," she said. "Please, Leon, just. I need a minute." I locked the door because I didn't want you to see me like this. A panic attack. I stood there, palm flat against the cool wood, listening to her breathing on the other side, the rustle of fabric, the faint click of something being set down. In 22 years of marriage, my wife had never locked that door on me. Not once. That night, standing there in my own hallway, listening to her talk to me through a locked door, I realized something simple and heavy. Whatever was going on in that room, it wasn't just about anxiety. It was the first time I felt like a stranger in my own house. Before everything shifted, my life moved in a steady rhythm, not perfect, not exciting, but dependable the way an old porch light is dependable. You flip the switch, and it does what it's supposed to do. That's how I thought my marriage worked. We had our disagreements, our quiet seasons, our tired weeks, but we always came back to center. I'm 58 years old. At this stage, a man isn't looking for fireworks. He's looking for peace. Consistency. Someone who knows how you take your coffee without you having to say it. Addison used to know all that. And I used to think I knew her. Most mornings started the same way. I'd wake around 5:45, sit on the edge of the bed for a minute to let my joints catch up to the rest of me, and head into the kitchen to make oatmeal and tea. Brown sugar for me. Honey for her. She'd come in around 6:30, rubbing her eyes, wearing that old blue robe she pretended to hate but never threw away. "Morning, Leon," she'd say, leaning against the counter, scrolling her phone. "Morning, baby. You want cinnamon today?" Just a little. Those small routines, that's what made our house feel like a home. After breakfast, I'd head down to Jefferson High. I've been teaching history there for over 3 decades. I love those kids, even the ones who pretend they don't love nobody back. The boys will argue about sneakers or rap beefs until the bell rings. The girls will roll their eyes at me when I ask them to put their phones away. But they listen. They always do, eventually. I run a little mentor program after school for the boys that need someone steady in their corner. Not a lecture. Just a place where they can talk like young men and get reminded they matter. Addison used to be proud of that. She used to brag to her coworkers about how I've raised a whole generation of boys who weren't even his. But sometime last year, that changed. She stopped asking how my day went. Stopped wanting to hear the stories. When I'd come home tired, she'd be locked into her phone or sitting on the couch with that distant look, like she was in a room I no longer had a key to. Still, I made the effort. Friday nights I'd bring home her favorite from the Jamaican spot on Glenwood. Saturdays we'd go grocery shopping together, even though she always pretended she hated it. Sundays were for church, sitting beside each other like we always had. But looking back, I realized she spent more and more time slipping away. Clinic short-staffed again, she'd tell me. Ty asked me to stay late. I've got some admin stuff to finish. I didn't think much of it then. A man who wants to believe the best will make excuses for the worst. There were signs I ignored. Her phone was always face down on the table now. Her showers got longer, sometimes 40 minutes. She started buying new perfume, new makeup, new dresses, all at once, out of nowhere. She'd come home from work smelling like a cologne I didn't recognize. One time, I asked softly, "You seeing somebody at the clinic? Some new friends?" She barely looked up from her phone. "Just people. Nothing you need to worry about." It was the tone that stung, like I was asking out of insecurity instead of care. But I let it pass. Like I let a lot of things pass. And maybe that's where older men like me mess up. We love steady. We love predictable. We think loyalty is the same thing as safety. I'd sit in my favorite armchair after school, grading papers while CNN murmured in the background. Addison would be on the couch, scrolling and smirking at her phone. I'd ask, "What's funny?" and she'd say, "Oh, just something dumb," and turn the screen away. Not once did I push harder. Not once did I demand to see anything. Not once did I believe she would lie to my face. We'd been married too long for that. When my daughter Jasmine stopped by, she'd give me that careful look daughters give their fathers when they sense something's off. "Y'all okay?" she asked once while helping me fix a cabinet hinge. "We're fine," I said. "Just busy." She didn't look convinced. "Dad, busy don't make people look that tired." I brushed it off. Told myself she was overthinking. But the cracks were there. And Addison wasn't doing much to hide them, I just wasn't ready to see them. The week before the locked door incident, she had 4 late nights in a row. 4. In 2 decades of marriage, she'd never worked late more than once a week. On Thursday, she came home around 11:15 p.m., hair slightly messy, makeup smudged, smelling like a mix of sweat and cologne. "You good?" I asked gently. "Leon, please," she snapped. "I'm exhausted. I don't need you interrogating me." Interrogating. All I did was ask if she was okay. I remember that night clearly. She took her phone into the bathroom when she showered, locked the door, and turned on music. Not gospel. Not old school R&B, something new. Something she used to make fun of. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time after she came out, wrapped in a towel, not meeting my eyes. I don't know when it happened, but the woman I knew had slowly become someone I didn't recognize. And I kept telling myself it was stress, hormones, work pressure, anything except what my gut tried to whisper. Addison used to reach for my hand in church. She used to fall asleep with her head on my chest. She used to smile at me when I walked through the door. Those small things disappeared, piece by piece, until I didn't even realize they were gone. But everything, every hesitation, every strange moment, every late night, every locked door, started to make a certain sense the night I heard moaning behind a door I never thought I'd find locked. The night that forced me to stop pretending nothing was wrong. The night with the locked door sat on my chest like extra weight. Not something I panicked about. Just something I couldn't shake. Even when I tried to convince myself it wasn't what it sounded like, the memory kept replaying, the moaning, the scramble, the sudden panic attack, the locked door. I carried that noise with me into the next day. Into my classroom. Into every quiet moment. I didn't say anything to Addison that morning. I just watched her. Really watched her. She came into the kitchen already dressed, hair done, makeup on, earlier than usual. I was stirring oatmeal on the stove. She moved around the kitchen with this nervous speed, like she wanted to be out of the house before I could ask anything. "Morning," I said. "Morning," she muttered, grabbing her purse, barely looking at me. "You feeling better? You said you had a rough night." She paused, just for a second, then nodded too fast. "Yeah. Just anxiety. It happens." For 22 years, it had never happened. Not once. She kissed my cheek, quick, distracted, and walked out. When the door closed, I stood there with the spoon in my hand, hearing the moan all over again. That was the first real crack. Not the locked door. Not the shaky excuse. But her face that morning. She looked like someone who wasn't sure what she had been caught doing. The story that didn't settle right. All day at school, I kept replaying her words. That locked door. Her voice. The way she finally opened the door with her robe on crooked, hair messy in a way that didn't match anxiety. I've been around enough teenagers to know when someone's covering something. They use too many words. Or the wrong ones. Or they look everywhere except at you. That morning, Addison didn't look me in the eyes once. During my lunch break, I sat in my classroom, eating a sandwich at my desk, and found myself staring at the wall without seeing it. Something wasn't adding up. Something wasn't clean. And once doubt enters a home, it doesn't leave quietly. It starts whispering to you in moments when everything should be normal. The weekend shift. 2 days later, her routine changed again. She used to love Saturday mornings, coffee together, grocery store, errands, maybe a thrift shop stop if she was in the mood. But that Saturday she was dressed and rushing out the house before I even got out of bed. "I've got to run into the clinic," she said, spritzing on perfume in the mirror. Karen called out. "They need help." "It's Saturday," I said quietly. "I know, but we're short-staffed," and she waved her hand in the air. "It's just one of those weeks." The perfume she put on wasn't one she usually wore. Sweeter. Younger. Stronger. "You want me to ride with you?" I asked. "We can grab breakfast after." "No." It came out too sharp. Then she softened her voice. "I mean, no, baby. I'll be quick." She grabbed her bag and left. I walked into the bedroom after the door closed behind her. Something about the room felt unsettled, not messy, not disturbed, just not ours. Her pillow smelled faintly like cologne mixed with that same new perfume. Not mine. I sat down slowly on the bed. My stomach tightened. But still, I didn't accuse her. Didn't interrogate. A man my age learns that words spoken too fast can't be taken back. But silence lets you find the truth without burning the house down. The voice I wasn't supposed to hear. Later that week, it happened again. Something small, but it hit me like a hammer. She was in the bathroom getting ready for work, phone on the counter. Music playing low. I walked by the half-open door just as her phone buzzed. Her ringtone wasn't the usual one, this one was a custom tone, short and soft. I heard a man's voice come through the speaker before she lunged for the phone. A laugh. Then, "What you wearing today?" Then she grabbed the phone, turned the volume down, and closed the door with a sharp click. A man's voice. Asking something you don't ask a married woman getting ready for her day. My chest tightened, but I didn't go after her. I leaned on the hallway wall, breathing slow. I'd spent years teaching young men how to stop, breathe, and think when life pushes them into corners. Now I had to take my own advice. When she came out, I didn't ask who it was. She didn't offer an explanation. That silence between us felt cold and heavy. Sunday at church, the text that landed wrong. At church that Sunday, she sat beside me with her legs crossed, purse in her lap, nails freshly done. When the choir started singing, she wasn't into it the way she usually was. She was on her phone more than she should have been. During the pastor's sermon, her phone lit up again, right in front of me. I didn't mean to look at the screen. It was just there. Ty W. Red Heart. Leaving early today? She snatched her phone close to her chest like I'd reached for it. Leon, please don't start, she whispered. I didn't say anything, I said softly. That look is saying enough. That look was confusion mixed with hurt. But she saw it as accusation. Guilt does that to people. She kept her phone in her purse after that, gripping it like she was afraid I'd snatch it away, though I never made a move. My eyes stayed on the pastor, but my mind stayed on that one line. Leaving early today? Someone who sends that to a married woman knows her schedule too well. The memory that finally clicked. After service, Jasmine met us in the parking lot. She hugged her stepmother politely. Then she looked at me longer than usual. You okay, Dad? Yeah, I said. You sure? Addison cut in. He's fine. Don't start. Jasmine raised her eyebrows but didn't push. She knew enough about married folks to know when a conversation wasn't meant for public air. As Addison walked ahead toward the car, Jasmine leaned close and whispered, Dad, something's off. I'm not blind. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She squeezed my hand once and let go. That small moment, my daughter seeing something I was trying not to see, made everything settle differently in my mind. The locked door wasn't random. The excuses weren't random. The voice wasn't random. The text wasn't random. It was all connected. And if I wanted the truth, I needed more than feelings. I needed proof. Proof that didn't come from shouting, accusing, or cursing. Proof that came from quiet, steady truth, the kind that can't be denied once it's heard. That's when the idea came to me. Not out of anger. Not out of revenge. But out of something older men know too well. When someone lies to your face, you don't fight them with noise. You fight them with facts. The next step was simple. Painful, but simple. I was going to find out exactly what was happening behind that locked bedroom door. I didn't buy the mic out of anger. That might sound strange, but it's the truth. When you reach my age, you learn that anger clouds a man's judgment faster than anything. And I wasn't about to confront my wife with nothing but suspicion and a shaky story about a locked door. If I was wrong, I'd break something that couldn't be put back together. If I was right, well, then I'd need proof solid enough that she couldn't twist it into something else. So I went about it slow. Calm. Measured. The decision to record. The idea came to me 3 days after church, when Addison left the house at 9:30 p.m. for a store run. She returned with nothing but gas station coffee and an irritated expression, claiming the line was long and she forgot what she went for. I sat in my armchair, watching her move around the living room, noticing the way she kept glancing at the clock, the way she held her phone tight against her chest. That was the moment I understood. I wasn't living in the same marriage she was. She had already stepped out emotionally, maybe physically, and the only person still trying to believe in the old version of our marriage was me. So the next morning before work, I drove to a small electronics shop off Memorial Drive. The young man behind the counter showed me a tiny recorder shaped like a thumb drive. It could be hidden easily, picked up sound from several feet away, and synced right to my phone. He asked if it was for a class project. I didn't lie. I just said, it's something I need to hear for myself. I drove home with that little device in my pocket, sitting at red lights longer than usual because my mind was turning the same sentence over and over. If she's lying, I need to know. If she's not, I'll sleep easy again. The doorframe. I waited until Addison left for work before I touched our bedroom. Standing in the doorway felt strange. Like I was entering a room that didn't belong to me anymore. The blanket was pulled too neatly over the bed. The throw pillows were all lined up in a way she normally didn't bother with unless company was coming. The windows were cracked open even though the weather had been cold. I didn't go through drawers or touch anything. I never believed in invading someone's privacy without reason. But I believed in finding the truth. I stood on a chair, reached up into the wooden trim above the doorframe, and tucked the tiny recorder into a spot where no one would casually look. The device was dark and small, blending perfectly into the shadowed edge of the frame. When I stepped back down, my hands were shaking. Not from fear. From clarity. From knowing the next step I took would either break my heart clean or put my doubts to rest for good. Before I left the room, I whispered something I hadn't said aloud in a long time. Lord, help me handle whatever this is with grace. The quiet before the storm. The whole day felt strange. Addison was distant again, snapping at little things, pacing around the house like she had someplace else to be. She barely sat through dinner. Her phone buzzed twice during the meal, once with a message that made her smile, then frown, then hide her phone under her leg. I watched her. Not suspicious. Not angry. Just watching my own wife like she was someone I was meeting for the first time. Around 9:30, she stretched dramatically and said, I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed. All right, I said, keeping my voice steady. I'll stay out here for a bit. Finish this grading. She nodded too quickly. Almost relieved. A few minutes later, I heard the lock click. That sound didn't break me this time. It prepared me. What I heard. All content kept non-graphic, safe for minors, focused on dialogue and betrayal, not bodily details. I didn't go to the door. Didn't press my ear against anything. Didn't sneak down the hall. I sat in the living room, turned off the TV, dimmed the lamp, and opened the recording app on my phone. It showed the device was active. Signal clean. At first, all I heard was normal room noise, footsteps, the bed shifting, a drawer sliding shut. Then, about 20 minutes later, the back patio door opened. I heard it plain as day, the soft clink of that older sliding door we'd been meaning to replace. A man's voice came through, low and familiar in that trying to be smooth way some men talk when they know they shouldn't be talking at all. Everything good? He still out there? Addison laughed, not loud, but relaxed. Comfortable. A laugh she hadn't used with me in months. He thinks I'm stressed, she said. I told him I might have another panic attack. They both laughed. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the sound wash over me the way cold water hits your back before you're ready. Not crying. Not angry. Just letting the truth sit in its own space. The man said something else, voice clearer now. You better hope he doesn't figure out that lock. Addison replied, he won't. Leon trusts me too much. Then she added something that sat deep in my chest. He's too calm. He'll believe anything if I say it with the right voice. I didn't want to hear the rest, but I kept listening. Not to punish myself. To be certain. The conversation continued. They joked about me still being awake. They whispered about timing. About being careful next time. None of it was explicit. None of it needed to be. The betrayal wasn't in the volume, it was in the comfort of their voices. The casual tone. The familiarity. The routine of it. They weren't stumbling into a mistake. They were moving through something practiced. The worst part wasn't hearing a man in my house. It was hearing my wife speak about our marriage like it was a story she was rewriting behind my back. Around 11, the recording picked up the sound of the patio door again, him leaving. Addison locked it behind him, then walked around the bedroom humming softly. When she finally got quiet, my screen showed the recording was still active. I let it run a little longer. Not because I needed more proof, but because I needed the moment to end naturally. At midnight, I stopped it. Saved the file. Backed it up twice, once to the cloud, once to an external drive. Then I sat there for a long time. Hands folded. Heart steady. Mind clear. I didn't cry. Didn't shake. Didn't break. It's strange, sometimes the truth hurts less than the lie you've been living with. The moment I became done, I walked quietly to the guest room, not our bedroom, because I didn't want to breathe that air tonight, and closed the door behind me. For the first time in months, I slept well. Heavy. Deep. Quiet. Not because the situation was easy, but because I finally knew the truth. There's a peace that comes with certainty, even painful certainty. It's like turning a page you've been afraid to look at for too long. In the morning, I made breakfast like normal. Addison came out of the bedroom yawning, robe tied tight. "Morning," she said, voice shaky but trying to sound natural. "Morning," I said calmly, turning the eggs. "Sleep all right?" "Not really." She rubbed her arm. "Lot on my mind." "I bet," I said. She didn't catch the tone. She didn't see anything different in my face. And that's when I knew. She wasn't expecting the truth to ever catch up to her. She thought I would stay blind as long as she smeared excuses over the cracks. But I wasn't blind anymore. I wasn't confused. I wasn't guessing. I had the truth. And once a man has the truth, the next step becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. It was time to act. Quietly. Deliberately. Without losing the dignity I'd spent a lifetime building. I didn't wake up angry the next morning. I didn't slam cabinets or interrogate her or pace around like a man losing his grip. I woke up with the kind of clarity a man only gets after the truth finally steps out of the shadows and sits down right in front of him. When you know something for certain, truly know it, there's no need to shout. Shouting is for people still trying to convince themselves. I wasn't in that stage anymore. Addison floated around the kitchen that morning trying to act normal. She reached into the cabinet for her mug, paused, glanced at me, then looked away just as quickly. Her movements were just a little too careful, the way someone moves when they're not sure what you do or don't know. I poured myself coffee. Didn't ask her anything. Didn't even look directly at her. That calm silence bothered her more than anything I could have said. A small distance that meant everything. Over breakfast, she cleared her throat. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm thinking," I replied. "About what?" "Life." She didn't like that answer. I could see it in the way her fork slowed down, the way she kept glancing at me like she expected something else. People who are hiding things get nervous when someone else is calm. Because calm means control. And control means you're not operating blindly anymore. When she went to grab her purse before leaving for work, I stayed seated at the table. She turned around and looked at me with a confused frown. "You're not going in today?" she asked. "I'll go a little later," I said. "Got some things to take care of first." "Oh." Her voice dipped in that nervous way again. Anything I should know?" "No." I didn't give her anything else. She wanted reassurance. She wanted to know I hadn't seen behind her curtain. I wasn't offering either. She hesitated another moment, then left. The moment the door shut, my whole body exhaled, not tension, but acceptance. This chapter of my marriage was ending. I just needed to close it carefully. Step 1, protect myself. I started in the living room. Sat at my laptop, opened a new folder, and labeled it simply, Truth. Then I transferred the audio file from my phone to the folder. Made 2 copies. Uploaded them to a private cloud account. Put one on a flash drive. Not because I planned to expose it to the world, but because I needed to protect myself. You don't stay married for 2 decades and then ignore the possibility that someone might try to flip the story. Especially when they're already lying comfortably. When I finished safeguarding everything, I made one more copy and set it aside in a small box. I wasn't sure when I would use it, but I knew I eventually would. Step 2, the guest room. I didn't sleep in our bedroom anymore. Not after what I heard. Not after knowing how recently that room had been used to laugh about me. That night, I took my pillow from our shared bed while she was in the shower. She poked her head out, confused. "What are you doing?" "I sleep better in the guest room," I said. "Back's been acting up." The lie was simple, but it landed hard. Her eyes widened for a second, just enough to tell me she understood at least part of the meaning. Space between us. A new distance she couldn't control. She didn't question me again. Didn't follow me. Didn't try to touch my arm or explain any more panic attacks. Because deep down, she knew something had shifted. Step 3, legal protection. 2 days later, during my planning period at the school, I made a phone call. My daughter Jasmine had mentioned a lawyer once, a friend of hers named Angela who handled family cases quietly and professionally. "Dad?" Jasmine answered. "Everything all right? I need that lawyer's number you mentioned." There was no judgment in her silence, only concern. "You want me to text it to you?" "Yes, baby." "Thank you." She didn't press me. She didn't need to. Jasmine is sharp, she can sense things men don't want to say out loud yet. I met with the lawyer the next afternoon. Her office was calm, books lying neatly behind her desk, the smell of peppermint tea in the air. "What brings you here today, Mr. Carter?" she asked. I handed her the flash drive. "I need to protect myself," I said. "And I need to do this right." She listened to the audio privately, her expression controlled and professional, then closed her laptop gently. "This," she said quietly, "is more than enough." I nodded. Not satisfied. Not relieved. Just affirmed. She walked me through accounts, property rights, marital assets, things I'd ignored for years because I believed my marriage had honesty baked into it. When I left her office, I felt steadier than I had in months. Step 4, a quiet talk with someone who wouldn't judge. That Sunday, I asked Pastor Harris if he had time to sit for a moment after service. We sat on the back pew, empty sanctuary around us, sunlight coming through the stained glass windows. "Leon," he said gently, "what's going on?" I told him everything. Not the intimate details. Just the truth. The locked door. The distance. The recording. The betrayal. He didn't look shocked. Not because it wasn't painful, but because pastors see the truth of people more often than the world realizes. "Do you want to fix the marriage?" he asked. I shook my head slowly. "It's not a marriage anymore, Pastor. It's a performance. And I'm the only one still reciting my lines." He nodded with understanding. "Then focus on peace. Not revenge. Not rage. Peace. That's the only thing I want," I said. He prayed with me, not for restoration of something broken, but for strength to walk through a difficult season without losing myself. I needed that. More than I knew. Step 5, prepare the moment where the truth would speak for me. I didn't want a scene. Didn't want yelling or accusations flying around the house. Didn't want her twisting stories behind closed doors. So I planned a moment where the truth could exist in the open, with witnesses who wouldn't be manipulated. A controlled moment. A calm moment. A moment where my dignity stayed intact. I called Jasmine first. "Baby, I'm hosting a small gathering Wednesday evening. I'd like you to be there." "You need me there, don't you?" "Yes. I'll be there." Then I called Pastor Harris. And my sister, who lived 20 minutes away. Just the people who actually cared about me. Not a crowd. Not a spectacle. Just enough to keep the truth grounded. When I invited Addison, her reaction was immediate. "A family gathering?" On a Wednesday, she asked, eyes narrowing. "I think it's needed," I said calmly. "We've been distant. I'd like some support around us." She hesitated, then agreed, mostly because saying no would have made her look guilty before anything even came out. She still didn't know I knew. She still didn't know the recording existed. She still thought the locked door had blown over. The night before the gathering, I slept in the guest room again. She paused at the door, watching me settle in. "You're really not coming to bed?" "No," I said gently. "Not tonight." Her eyes flicked with something, fear or guilt, I'm still not sure, but she turned away without another word. Step 6. Hold my peace until the moment truth arrived. The hardest part of all of this wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't the recording. It wasn't the planning. It was keeping myself steady between the discovery and the reveal. Every night I lay down in that guest room, I reminded myself, don't lose yourself over someone who lost you first. Every morning when she walked around acting like everything was normal, I reminded myself, she doesn't know your strength yet. And when the day of the gathering came, I woke up calm. Not happy. Not vengeful. Just calm, the way a man feels when he knows the truth is finally about to stand on its own legs. Addison looked nervous all day. She kept asking if everything was all right. She kept watching me from the corner of her eye. But I didn't give her anything. Not until it was time. Not until everyone was seated. Not until the air in the living room grew still and the moment arrived where silence did what my words never could. I've learned something over the years. A quiet room can tell the truth louder than any argument. That Wednesday evening, my living room was exactly that kind of room, quiet, steady, watching. I'd invited only the people who mattered, the ones who loved me without conditions, Jasmine, my daughter, my older sister, Diane, Pastor Harris, and Addison herself. No screaming. No ambush. No raised voices. Just the calm before something honest needed to be said. Jasmine arrived first. She hugged me long and tight, the kind of hug daughters give when they know their father is carrying something heavy. "You ready?" she whispered. "I'm steady," I said. "That's enough." Pastor Harris walked in with his Bible under his arm. He placed a hand on my shoulder and nodded. "You speak when you're ready, Leon. God will handle the rest." Addison came last. She stood in the doorway for a moment, scanning the room like she was walking into a surprise inspection. Her smile was thin, strained. "Wow, everybody's here," she said with a nervous laugh. No one laughed back. She sat on the far end of the couch, hands locked together, leg bouncing lightly. The air before the truth. For a moment, nobody said anything. Just the soft tick of the wall clock and the faint sound of cars outside. Finally, Addison cleared her throat. "So, what's this about?" I looked at her. Not with anger. Not with sadness. Just with the calm of a man who stopped running from the truth. "I called everyone here," I said slowly, "because I want clarity. Honesty. And peace." She nodded, too quickly. "Okay, and?" "I've been silent for a while," I continued. "Trying to understand things on my own. But I don't want any more guessing." Her eyes flickered. Jasmine watched her carefully. My sister crossed her arms. Pastor Harris bowed his head slightly, ready for the moment. Addison's voice trembled. "Leon, if something's wrong, just tell me. We can talk." "We will," I said calmly. "But not with half the truth." I reached over to the small wooden table beside my chair and picked up a tiny portable speaker. Her eyes widened the instant she saw it. A reaction you can't fake. A fear that appears only when someone knows there's something in the shadows waiting to be heard. "Leon, what is that?" she breathed. "The truth," I said. The moment the room stopped breathing. I set the speaker on the coffee table. The room was so quiet I could hear Jasmine sucking in a small breath. I pressed play. The first sound was the faint click of our bedroom door locking. Addison's face drained of color. Then came her voice, unmistakably hers, laughing softly, talking to someone in the room with her. A man's voice followed. Clear. Familiar to anyone who had ever heard smooth-talking confidence before. Jasmine covered her mouth. My sister's jaw tightened. Pastor Harris closed his eyes and muttered a prayer under his breath. Addison reached forward suddenly. Turn it off. Leon, please. I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. The recording played for the next 20 seconds. Her whispering. His questions. Their laughter at my expense. Their talk about timing. About being careful. About how Leon won't figure it out. I didn't need more. I pressed stop. Silence swallowed the room whole. Addison's hands were shaking so hard she had to grip the edge of the couch. Her breathing turned short and shallow. Leon, this is. It's clear, I said quietly. The unraveling. She tried the first excuse people always try. It's not what it sounds like. My sister let out a disbelieving laugh. Jasmine shook her head slowly. Pastor Harris didn't even lift his eyes. I stayed still. I didn't rescue her from her own words. Then came the second stage, the emotional spin. Her eyes filled with tears. Leon, please. I made a mistake. I was confused. I've been stressed, and Ty was just. I held up a hand. Not to silence her harshly. Just to draw a line. A soft, final line. No more stories, I said. No more panic attacks. No more locked doors. No more lies. She pressed her palms to her face and sobbed quietly. What do you want me to say? She choked out. I messed up. I know I did. But don't throw away 22 years because... I cut her off gently. You threw them away. I'm just acknowledging it. She looked around the room, maybe hoping someone would come to her defense. But not one person spoke. The truth had filled every corner of that space. And truth leaves no room for manipulation. My decision, spoken calmly. I leaned forward slightly. Not angry. Not vengeful. Just collected. I've already spoken to a lawyer, I said. I'm filing for divorce. Her face dropped as if the ground had been pulled out from under her. Leon, no. Please. I can explain everything. I can fix this. You can't fix what you mocked, I said softly. You can't fix something you were throwing away while I was still trying to save it. She shook her head violently. This is too fast. This is too much. This didn't start tonight, I said. You ended our marriage long before I pressed play. Jasmine reached over and placed a hand on my forearm, a silent show of support, not for the moment, but for the man she knew I'd always tried to be. My sister spoke then, voice steady. Leon, you handled this better than most people would. Better than I would have. I didn't speak. Didn't let pride show. Didn't show hurt either. I just breathed. Addison sobbed quietly into her hands. No one moved to comfort her. Not because she didn't deserve human sympathy, she did. But because the consequences she was drowning in were consequences she created herself. The final words of that night. When her sobbing quieted, I spoke one last time. My voice wasn't cold. Just final. You can stay here tonight, I said. But starting tomorrow, I'd like you to make arrangements to move out. I'll give you time. I won't be cruel. But I won't share this space with a lie anymore. She nodded slowly, completely deflated. Broken in a way that came from the weight of truth, not from anything I had done. No yelling. No threats. No anger. Just the honesty she hoped would never surface. I stood. Everyone else followed. Jasmine hugged me again, fiercer this time. My sister squeezed my shoulder. Pastor Harris prayed over me quietly, a simple plea for peace and strength. Addison stayed seated on the couch, face buried in her hands, whispering apologies into the room, but none of them were for me. They were for herself, for the life she'd thrown away without realizing how final the fallout would be. When everyone left, I went to the guest room, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed, and breathed. For the first time in a long time, the air felt honest. The morning after the gathering, the house felt different. Not lighter. Not heavier. Just honest, like it had finally stopped pretending to be something it wasn't. I woke up early in the guest room, sat on the edge of the bed, and let the silence settle around me. It wasn't the kind of silence that hurts. It was the kind that gives you room to breathe. Room to think. Room to start walking forward without dragging yesterday behind you. I could hear Addison moving around in the kitchen. Soft footsteps. A few quiet sniffles. The kind of sounds that come from someone who finally sees the truth they spent months running from. I didn't rush to join her. Didn't rehearse a speech. Didn't prepare a fight. I just got dressed, simple slacks, a clean shirt, the shoes Jasmine got me for Father's Day, and walked out with the steady pace of a man who no longer owed explanations. Addison was standing by the counter, hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from. She looked smaller, somehow. Not physically, just in the way guilt can make someone fold inward. "Morning," she said, voice quiet, unsure. "Morning," I responded. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to argue, nothing left to debate. Finally, she exhaled shakily. "I'll start packing today." I'm sorry, Leon. I don't know what else to say except I'm sorry." "I know you're sorry," I said gently. "But some things don't go back the way they were just because someone regrets them." She nodded, staring down at her mug. "Do you hate me?" "No," I said honestly. "I don't hate you. Hate makes people stuck. And I'm not trying to stay stuck with this. I just want peace." Her eyes filled again. But she didn't challenge me. Didn't defend herself. Didn't make excuses. Some part of her understood that she had crossed a line that couldn't be talked away. She gathered her things over the next 2 days, clothes, toiletries, a few keepsakes. She moved slowly, like she was saying goodbye to a version of her life she hadn't realized she'd already pushed away months before. I stayed out of her path. Not cold. Just finished. When she rolled the last suitcase to the door, she paused. "Leon, I know this doesn't mean much now, but I want you to find someone who treats you better than I did. You deserve that." "I know," I said. Not prideful. Just truthful. She hesitated, then added quietly, "You were the best thing in my life." "I'm sorry I didn't act like it." I nodded once. She walked out. The door clicked shut softly behind her. I stood there for a long minute, listening to the new quiet. This time, it didn't sting. It felt like the first breath after being underwater too long. A new routine. Life didn't suddenly become joyful or exciting. But it became peaceful. And peace is something you don't realize you've been missing until it comes back and sits beside you. I cleaned the kitchen. Washed the linens. Opened windows and let fresh air fill the house. Simple things, but necessary ones. Jasmine came by with groceries that weekend. She put them on the counter and hugged me hard. "You okay, Dad?" "I will be," I said. "I feel settled." She stayed a while, helped me reorganize the living room, and kept me company without asking too many questions. That's the kind of daughter she is, present without being pushy. After she left, I made myself a cup of chamomile tea and sat on the porch. The sun was low in the sky, warm and soft. Neighbors waved as they passed, and I nodded back, letting the evening settle in my bones. I didn't feel lonely. Not at all. I felt like a man who finally had room to hear his own thoughts again. Small steps toward healing. Over the next few weeks, I filled my days with what mattered. Teaching my students. Mentoring my boys after school. Having Sunday dinner with Jasmine. Stopping by church early to help set up the chairs. The routines that always kept me grounded kept on working. And the pain, while real, didn't crush me. It just reminded me that I was alive and still capable of feeling something honest. Pastor Harris checked in every so often, sitting with me on the church steps after service. "You're walking tall, Leon," he told me one morning. "I'm trying," I said. "You're doing more than trying. You're choosing dignity. That's not easy." He was right. It wasn't easy. But it was necessary. I didn't block Addison. Didn't badmouth her to anyone. Didn't drag her name around the neighborhood. She made her choices. I made mine. And my choice was peace. Letting go without losing myself. One evening, about a month after she moved out, I found myself lying in bed, my own bed again, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet. Clean. Still. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something simple and powerful. My home was mine again. Not because someone else had left it, but because I had taken myself back. There's a difference. Healing didn't come all at once. It came little by little. In the quiet mornings. In the small victories. In the steady breath of a man who finally stopped shrinking himself to protect someone who wasn't protecting him. And as strange as it sounds, I felt grateful. Not for the betrayal. Not for the heartbreak. But for the clarity that came from it. Clarity about who I am. What I deserve. And how I want the rest of my life to look. I didn't get a happy ending. I got something better. A truthful one. It's been months now, and I still think back to that night, the night I heard the sound no husband expects to hear behind his own door. Not because I'm stuck in the past, but because it taught me something I didn't know I needed to learn at this age. Sometimes the breaking isn't the moment you hear the truth. It's the moment you stop lying to yourself about it. I spent too long believing my calm would keep my marriage steady. Too long thinking loyalty alone could save something that had already drifted away from me. But the truth is simple. You can't hold on to someone who's already walked out of the relationship in their heart. And you shouldn't lose yourself trying. People ask if I ever wanted to confront Ty, or if I wanted revenge, or if I ever thought about trying to win something out of this. The answer is no. Because the moment I played that recording in front of everyone, the truth did all the talking I needed. I learned that night that dignity doesn't shout. It doesn't beg. It doesn't demand someone stay when they've already chosen to leave. Dignity just stands up, takes a breath, and walks forward without looking back. These days, my life is quieter, but it's honest. My mornings are peaceful. My home feels like mine again. And I carry myself knowing I didn't lose anything worth keeping. Let me leave you with this. When something feels wrong in your own house, don't ignore it. Don't let someone gaslight your instincts. And don't let fear keep you from facing the truth. You deserve honesty. You deserve peace. You deserve to live in a home where your spirit can breathe. Now let me ask you something. If you heard what I heard behind your own bedroom door, would you have stayed silent like I did, or would you have acted sooner? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. And if my story meant something to you, make sure you subscribe. I've got more truth to share.